No, I don't want you to think much about being recorded, because that's not what's important.
No,
We're just talking.
I won't worry about that. I just try to answer what you want me to answer, or try to tell you stories you want me to tell you.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to start with some easy questions. Like, what's your favorite song of all time?
You know, I don't know that I have a favorite song. There's been a lot of songs in my life. There was one there for a while that I loved. It was by Merle Haggard. And it was, I'm always at the top of my mountain when I fall.
Yeah.
You know, and I've got it on a cassette, but
Thank you.
in my depression modes, that was always my song because it's so truthful.
Yeah.
You're always at the top of your mountain, you know. When I get to the top of my mountain, it seems like I fall.
Yeah.
Now, he was talking about different things, but everybody has the same thing in their life.
Yeah.
The character of the man is, do you get up and do you continue to climb back up that mountain?
Yeah.
And try to keep going. There was only one thing that I ever really walked away from and never went back to, and that was rodeo. Because I was on top of the mountain. I was in the PRCA. I was working for world-renowned stock contractor. I even had a chance of maybe going to California. Who knows what could have happened? And I had the car wreck. So, I mean, I was at the top of my mountain. The sweetest of dreams. And then it was changed overnight. And they actually told me I'd never walk again. And that's hard to face. And I don't know, I guess I looked it in the face and said, I will defeat you. And I know my neighbors, David Hood, goes to our church, says he remembers as a little kid, as they were getting ready for school, watching me walk out and get the mail at Mom's house there on McVeigh with my walker, walking out there with legs in casts and walking out there and getting the mail in the snow. And
uphill, barefoot, both ways.
But he said he said, I will never forget that, because he said, right there showed me what a real man is. That is overcoming, you know, whatever life threw at him. He's trying to overcome it. Now, you know, there were a lot of people was hoping, and I even hoped, that I could get back in rodeo. But when I found that my right leg was so much worse off than I thought, and that it was shorter, and that there was no way I could run, then it was like, no, you're not going to be able to be a rodeo clown. And you can't bend well enough to get in the barrel. Maybe funny enough, but you still got to be able to get down in the barrel. And Yeah, I could have had a special one made, but still, I just, after 3 years with Sue, I just turned around and walked away from that light, and never looked back. Regret that I didn't look back, because there were opportunities there, and there were people that would help me through them, but I just felt like I couldn't put in my 100%, and I didn't want people laying pity on me, because at the time I was in a wheelchair. That's also when I learned the difference between when you're in a wheelchair and when you abuse the system of having the rolly carts at Walmart and the handicap parking. And I swore up and down I would never ever use a handicap parking or use a rolly cart when somebody that could use it might come in. They might come in and I might not see them, and even though they may still do their business and everything, it still would be hard for them. And I was like, no, that's not right. And that's what's wrong with this world, is everybody thinks they got to take care of themselves first, instead of trying to take care of each other, which if that's what we would do, this world would be such a better place. That if people would just try to look out for other people.
Alright, so last time I was talking to you, I was asking you about, I think we started talking about your favorite song, but then we were moving into, you were giving some advice. And now I want to know, what is your greatest accomplishment?
I really don't know what my greatest accomplishment is. I don't think a person ever knows what they think their greatest accomplishment. Maybe just being married to my wife is my greatest accomplishment. Being back with her and loving her and living with her. Because we put up through thick and thin. We've made it through. And that would probably be my greatest accomplishment. I made it into PRCA, but I didn't stay there. You know, I had a car wreck. I didn't get to stay in the PRCA like I wanted to because I had the car wreck. But that's just things that happen through life. If I had stayed in the PRCA, then I might have something different. But I turned my back and walked away from rodeo because I didn't think I could ever be in rodeo again. And I didn't want to have that, oh, I wish syndrome. So I think really my greatest accomplishment is actually me and Chris being together for as long as we've been together. Because, we've had some ups and downs. And not just fights between, but I mean some tough times. There's been a lot of adversity, and we fought it out. We brought you kids through, you know.
Mhm.
Those could be accomplishments, watching my kids grow up.
Yeah. How do you want to be remembered?
Kind of like T.J. Cypher says, all I want to do is be remembered by making somebody smile. Because if I can make somebody smile, that's one of the things I try to do. You know, you've heard me tell stories. I always try to make them funny. I always try to make things seem funny. To hear people laugh, to see them smile, to think that you're funny, and in there for a long time getting paid to do it. Because I used to try to be funny like that when I was in school, and I was ridiculed for being a cowboy. And then the next thing you know, I'm getting paid to do the very same things, and I'm getting paid good. And it's just making people smile. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been a clown. You know, and I always chose the Emmett Kelly clown, or the Emmett Kelly face, the hobo clown, because I thought it was less scary to children. And if you're less scary, then they're more apt to laugh than if they're scared of what they see. So, I mean, there was a whole lot of thoughts, but not thoughts, put into what I did, but basically trying to get a smile. That's all I ever wanted.
Mhm.
You know.
What were some significant turning points in your life?
Oh, there were so many. There's so many things that happened through my life. My dad dying when I was a little kid. My mom raising 2 teenage boys and doing the best job and a great job she did. Becoming a rodeo clown, and then becoming a PRCA rodeo clown. It was like, oh my gosh, I think I hit the top.
Your turn.
I thought, you know, okay, I've hit the top. Devastating car wreck changed my life. In an instant, changed my life. There's been a lot of things that have instantly changed my life, but never something like that. That it was the most devastating thing that ever happened to me. And that's when I had to come to the realization that, you know, they told me I'd never walk again, that I had to walk away from rodeo, that I just couldn't be in it no more. That was hard. That was hard. Because, I mean, there for a while, that was my whole life. I mean, I thought I'd hit the big time. And I don't know. You know, things happen.
Mhm.
We don't know why. We don't have I mean, we just don't know why. So it's like, okay, whatever. And just try to go on with your life after that.
Yeah. Are you comfortable right now? Do you need to shift?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm alright.
What would you say is still unfinished in your life?
I don't know that anything is unfinished. There might be something that's unfinished that I don't know about, because that's in God's plan. I don't know what else I can do in my life to, I'm ready to go to heaven right now. As far as I'm concerned, I'm done. My life is done. I'm ready. I'll go any time. And it doesn't matter to me. Hopefully without pain. But I don't, I don't know that there's anything that I haven't, because there's never been anything that I've ever tried to do that if I set my mind to it, I couldn't do. And I hope I instilled that into my kids, that no matter what, they've seen their dad do things that most people could not do. And you know what? You can do things no matter what. And of course, it really stems down to Christ Jesus too, being in your life and being in control and trusting in Him. And that's all I do right now. I have given my life to Christ to use it, take it, whatever we got to do. I know I'm ready. I know I'm about to die. I'm not scared of it. Sometimes I wish we'd just get it over with. And I know that sounds terrible. It sounds selfish to some people, but guess what? It's my life, and it will be a glorious day for me to be with the Lord. And I can't help it if they don't like it. What they got to do is they got to get with God themselves. And then they'll understand. And until you do, you'll never understand.
What do you believe happens when you die?
When you die,
Mm-hmm.
you go to heaven. You resurrect into heaven, and you go with Christ, and you go before the Lord. And of course you might get a few spankings for some of the things you did, but He forgives all. But what happens after that? Not a one of us knows. There is nobody can sit there and tell you they know is what's going to happen when you die. Because there's not a one of them. There's only one person that has ever come back from the dead, and that's Christ Jesus alone. And nobody else. I don't care how many stories they may tell, and their stories, but there's not a one of them can tell you. Christ Jesus alone is the only one that has ever come from the dead, risen, talked to mortal man, ate dinner, did things, and then rose into heaven. When you die, you will rise into heaven. And that's it. After that, I have no idea. There's all kinds of promises. There's all kinds of things in the Bible about how you get a new life. You get a new body. You know, everything becomes new. We don't know. We may just go on living like we're living, but living free. You know, that's not something that you can ever put a bet on. I would never put a bet on it.
If you didn't have any physical limitations and you could spend your final days doing anything, what would you choose to do?
If I didn't have limitations,
Yeah.
well, it all depends on whether I have 1 or 2 days, or a week, or a couple of weeks. But I would want to go ride. I would want to go ride the horse. I'd want to go ride through the mountains. I would want to go see the countryside. You know, I would love to have a motorcycle and be able to go do that. Drive through the forest, you know, Yellowstone and stuff like that.
And we found that when we made it to Wyoming and we look, and to our left there was a ridge of some rocks, and it was kind of old westerny type. And I looked at Cody and I said, you know, Red would absolutely love this. He always said he wanted to go to Wyoming, he wanted to go to Yellowstone, and he never got the chance to go. So I'm glad that I'm getting the opportunity to go and take the kids and see something that Red always talked about. So I get a little emotional thinking about it, you know, because I wish he was here to go with us. But in a way, I'm kind of glad he's not, because he wouldn't have stopped talking for sure. And some scenery would probably trigger a memory or a story or some kind of thing that was, you know, true to Red's style. But he would absolutely love this. It looks a lot like the old Western movies he used to watch when I was a kid. So it was pretty amazing. I got a little teary-eyed when we made it.
I'd love to have a boat, a man in his boat, and go fishing. Yeah, there's a million things I'd love to do, but with no limitations. If you only had one day, if I only had one day and knew I had just one day, and then, you know, I'm gonna pass, I would probably spend that whole day on my knees praying to God, because I mean, that's, you know, that's just, you know, yeah. If I only had one day, it would be I would just spend it on my knees, praising God.
Not if, but what is one final story that you would want people to hear about you or about your life? Because you're a big storyteller.
Yeah.
So, one story that you want us to hold on to.
That one would take a lot of thought. I don't know. There's so many different things I've done through my life. I don't know whether I could come up with one story that I think everybody would want to hang on to. There are so many things we did. There were so many things that Rick Caddick and I did. I mean, if I had the chance, I would change the last days of August, because then maybe I would have a chance to talk to Julio Marino a little better. Maybe I would have a chance to have the chance to go to California. Maybe I would have the chance to come to Mike's wedding and not have a car wreck. Maybe I'd still have the chance to be in rodeo. I mean, now as far as stories of what we've done, oh, I don't know. There's just so many different things that we've done that not all of them are good too. Because we was pretty wild. Rick and I was just a little bit wild. And we had our fun. I don't know, Well, that whole story, I mean, if you want to start at the back end beginning, is I was working cattle, and this man got in a pen, and at first I thought he was getting in my way, but I wasn't rude to him, and, I may have told him, I can handle this, and that's when he told me, you ought to go to work for my father-in-law, Cotton Rosser. And that's when that was the first time that I thought, wow, I could go to California. So I had my other plans, so I jumped in my van and I took off. And if there was one thing I was going to change, that I would change on that trip, would be the fact that I stopped and ate, or how much I ate. I would not have eaten as much as I did and made myself sleepy. Because if I could have lived through all that, if I could have made it through that, I mean, my itinerary that day was to leave Pueblo, Colorado that night, drive to Missouri on Friday, because that was the day I had the car wreck, be in Mount Vernon on Friday, because I had a girlfriend here where I could go out, and then I was going up to Mike's on Saturday because they were having a wedding. And, I could get up early, head up there, and then I knew as soon as the wedding was over with, I might be able to stop back through Mount Vernon for a second, but only a second, and then I had to head to Colorado. And I was supposed to get in the truck for Harry, and they had a truckload of cattle there waiting for me, or bulls or something, and I was supposed to get in the truck and head for Harrison, Arkansas. Well, that's traveling across Kansas and whatnot. 2 days, 2 states, back and forth. That's a lot of driving. But I just figured, okay, you know, I can do this. I can always stop and take a nap in the truck because I can sleep for 2 or 3 hours in the truck and then take off again. And I usually would be all right. And that was my itinerary. And then I would have probably sat down with Harry at Harrison, Arkansas, and talked to him about going to California. And they're such good Christian people that they would have been doing everything they could to help me get there. They would have been getting my bus ticket. They would get me to the bus terminal, or, you know, if I was going to fly, or they would be talking to Cotton and seeing how he wanted to do it, or they might, you know, I might travel with some other rodeo person and got, you know, go out there. And who knows? I mean, you know, I could be as famous as some of these PBR clowns are. But that's not what fate dealt me. And I was like, okay. Now, when they told me when I was in the hospital that I'd never walk again, and they had my legs in tractors, and they had my other leg in a cast, and they had weights on them, and everything else, I made up my mind right then that I wasn't going to believe them, that I could walk. Someday I'd be able to walk. And, I mean, that was my own hard. Back then we didn't have home health. We didn't have people come by and help you. You know, they kicked you out of the hospital and you were gone. And I did all that on my own. I made myself, you know, where I could walk again. So I figured I'd beat the system there, but I also knew I had a broken knee. And because I hadn't torn any ligaments in that knee, then as long as I hadn't torn any ligaments, then my leg was still good, but I'd still never be able to run. I mean, it was just like, okay, it's done, but, you know, that's just part of it, you know. So I just figured, okay, this is the way it's going to be. And I just went on from there. Now, I did get the chance to go out and work at the Hall of Champions. I worked there for 3 years. The one greatest thing that place did for me was I was usually a very quiet person when I talked to people. But when I was at the hall, I always had my clown makeup on. And it made it easier for me to talk. So then, that's where I started learning that maybe I'm funnier than I thought I was. You know, that it was easier to talk to people than I really thought it was. And it did teach me that, you know, and then I spent 3 years there, and then after 3 years I was like, Well, I met Sue, and then Mike was going to try to run the Spade Ranch, so it was like, well, come back here and try to help run the Spade Ranch. Whether that was a mistake or not, I don't know. But that was the choices I made, and, you know, I stick with everything I ever did. It doesn't matter. You know, I did a lot of bad things, and I hurt a lot of people. I hurt a lot of people that I love. But, you know, there was a whole lot of other stuff involved. And sometimes I use my car wreck as an excuse. And you got to be careful doing that. You can't let yourself get into doing something like that. That you've got to understand it's up to you to take care of things. You know. But anyways, I've been babbling now. Yeah. So now what?
Final question is final question, and then you can doze off or watch the game or whatever you want to do. What pieces of advice do you have for me in my life?
For you?
Mm-hmm.
Always be yourself. You always have been. You always will be. But all I can do is tell you to stay that course. Stay the course. You know, I don't really know exactly what you do for a living. We ain't never really talked about that. You know, something that we ought to talk about sometime. Because I really don't know. All I tell people is, you're a social worker out in Seattle. That's all I know. But as far as for you, just stay the course. You are who you are, and, you know, don't let stupid things make you do stupid things. Stay the course, be who you are, and you know, stay who you are. And then that way you don't never have to worry. You are so articulate. I guess that's the word. That's the word I use. I don't know exactly what that word means, except to me, it means you know how to write, and you know how to express your feelings even on paper. Where most people, they might be able to express them through their voice, but they can't do it through writing. I've read some, you know, I don't read a whole lot of your Facebook stuff, you know, because that's your stuff. I don't get into a lot of that. But I've read some of this stuff, and you are very articulate. And that's all I can say about you, is you need to stay the course.
Definitely.
Because, I mean, I don't know that, you know, I don't know what's going, you know, what's happening, you know, with you or Caitlin or anything like that. That part doesn't matter. I'm just saying about you. You need to keep yourself grounded, and as grounded as you are, no matter what happens, nobody can change. who you are.
Just keep being me.
Just keep being you.
Pretty easy.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know, I try my damnedest, because I call you Skye.
Mhm.
Pass you in the kitchen on the way to the coffee. I wonder what you're thinking as I kiss you softly. Oh, there's so much behind your eyes. You're a paperback cover to a perfect mystery, the kind of book that knows how to keep me guessing. You're open, then you're closed. I know you, then I don't. You're like poetry in old blue jeans, standing there right next to me. I can't read you, but I sure love trying to. 'Cause you hold it in like you hold your breath, like the last long drag on a cigarette. I'm thinking that it's gonna take a lifetime to know you. You're such an old soul, but you love like a child. You paint my world so red and wild, and I can't fence you in. Like blood in my veins, your words move through me. Your hands of leather like satin to me. You're impossible to tame. I wouldn't want to anyway. You're like poetry in old blue jeans, standing there right next to me. I can't read you, but I sure love trying to. 'Cause you hold it in like you hold your breath, like the last long drag on a cigarette. I'm thinking that it's gonna take a lifetime to know you. You're like poetry in old blue jeans, standing there right next to me. I can't read you, but I sure love trying to. 'Cause you hold it in like you hold your breath, like the last long drag on a cigarette. I'm thinking that it's gonna take a lifetime, and I don't mind that it's gonna take a lifetime to know you.